Okay, this is Algebra 1, Lesson 3.4. We're going to look at solving two-step and multi-step inequalities, but let's do our warm-up first. So make sure that you've done the warm-up before you go ahead and check the answers. So this first one, we want to get rid of the 5. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. And that's going to become 2x equals negative 12. And then we're going to divide both sides by 2. So x equals negative 6. All right, this next one, we need to get rid of this 3 in the denominator first. So I'm going to multiply by 3 or 3 over 1. So that 3 goes away. So I'm going to rewrite it over here. 2x minus 4 equals 24. Now I'm going to move this 4 to the other side. I'm not writing right below because I don't have enough space. So 2x equals 28. Divide both sides by 2, and x equals 14. Circle that one. Okay, for this inequality, we're going to solve it and then graph it. So we need to get t by itself. So the inverse operation is to subtract 9. So then we get, I'm going to move over here, 5 minus 9. That's going to be a negative 4 is less than t. So on my line, I'm going to put negative 4. My negatives get bigger in this direction and smaller in this direction. I'm going to have an open circle at 4 because it's just a less than. And I'm going to read it in the reverse order. I'm going to read it as t is greater than negative 4. So that means t is everything to this side. Okay? All right, for this next one, I need to get rid of this negative 2 in the bottom. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 2 or negative 2 over 1, however you want to look at it. So this goes away. Now I'm left with a, and since I multiplied by a negative sign, I need to flip the sign. So 4 times negative 2 becomes negative 8. So now I'm going to graph this. And at negative 8, I'm going to do a closed circle since it's a less than or equal sign. It says 8 is less than or equal to negative 8. So it's everything to the left. Okay, so when we're solving inequalities that contain more than one operation, that means we're going to use more than one step. And just remember, we're going to use the inverse operation to undo those operations. Okay, so let's solve this first one and then graph it. All right, we've got 45 plus 2b is greater than 61. Well, let's look at what's being done to the b. We have it multiplied by 2, and then we're adding 45. So the inverse operation of adding 45 is to subtract 45. So then we get 2b is less than 16. Now I've got a second step. I've got to divide by 2. So we're treating this just like it would be if it was an equation. So then b is less than 8. Now to graph it, 8, 9, 10. We'll do some on this side. We're going to do an open circle at 8, and it says b is greater than 8. So it's everything to the right. Okay, so that involved 2 steps. Let's try the next one. 8 minus 3y is greater than or equal to 29. Well, let's get rid of this 8 first, and since it's being added, we need to subtract it. So then we get negative 3y is greater than or equal to 29 minus 8 becomes 21. Okay, we don't flip the sign yet, all right? We only subtracted. We didn't do any multiplication or division. Now we're going to divide by a negative 3. So since we are dividing, we do need to flip the sign. 21 divided by negative 3 becomes negative 7. So now let's graph that. I'm going to do a closed circle at negative 7 since it's y is less than or equal to. So if y is less than or equal to, that means it's everything to the left. Okay? All right, so make sure that you see that to solve these more complicated inequalities, we may need to first simplify the expression on one or both sides. And then once it's simplified, we're going to use our order of operations, combine like terms, and or use the distributive property. Okay? So let's try one. So this first inequality says 2 minus a minus 10 is greater than negative 4t. Well, let's simplify this left side first. What's a 2 minus a minus 10? When we see a minus minus, that becomes a 2 plus 10. And now we add 10 and 2, and we get 12 is greater than negative 4t. Now we can divide by -4. Since we're dividing by a negative, we flip the sign. So t is greater than -3, or you can read it as -3 is less than t. So -3, -4, -2. We're going to do an open circle at 3, and it says that t, again, I'm going to read it with the variable first. T is greater than -3, so that means it's everything on the right side. Okay? Again, we only flip when we're dividing or multiplying by a negative. Okay, so -4 times parentheses 2 minus x is less than 8. So we're going to need to use the distributive property for this. So we're going to distribute the -4 throughout. So that's going to become -8. -4 times -x becomes a positive 4x is less than or equal to 8. Now, let's get rid of this 8 on this side. So the inverse operation is to add 8. So that means we have 4x is less than or equal to 16. And then we can divide both sides by 4. So x is less than or equal to 4. Again, we're going to graph it. I'm just going to do a couple numbers. We're going to use a closed circle at 4, and x is less than or equal to. Okay? All right, here's another one. 2/3 f plus 1/2 is greater than 1/3. All right, remember, when we've got a bunch of fractions, let's get rid of them by using the least common multiple. And the least common multiple of 3, 2, and 3, the number they all go into, the smallest number they all go into, is 6. So we're going to multiply everything by 6/1. And I can't quite fit that right in here. So I'm going to multiply all parts by 6/1. This 3 goes into this 6 2 times. So now we have 2 times 2, which is 4f. This 2 goes into this 6 3 times. So we've got 3 times 1, which becomes 3. Put in our sign. Now we've got this 3 to go into this 6 2 times. 2 times 1 is 2. Now this looks much easier to solve. Let's move this 3 over to the other side. 4f is greater than 2 minus 3. That becomes a -1. Divide both sides by 4, and f is greater than -1/4. Now to graph these, I would just recommend doing whole numbers and then estimating, it should be a negative, estimating where it falls. So -1/4 is going to be not quite halfway here, but between the halfway mark. So it's going to be an open circle right there. And then it says f is greater than, so it's everything to the right. Okay? All right, so now we're going to try a word problem. It says to rent a certain vehicle, rent a ride charges $55 per day with unlimited miles. The cost of renting a similar vehicle at We Got Wheels is $38 per day plus 20 cents per mile you drive. For what number of miles is the cost at Rent-A-Ride less than the cost at We Got Wheels? So we've got two rent-a-car companies. One charges a flat $55 a day. The other company is only $38 a day, but you're going to pay 20 cents per mile you drive. We want to know when will the other one be a better deal than the other. So we're going to let M represent the number of miles, and the cost of a rent-a-ride company should be less than that of We've Got Wheels. So our verbal model is the cost at Rent-A-Ride must be less than the daily cost at We've Got Wheels plus what they're charging per mile, okay, which is 20 cents times the number of miles. All right, so let's plug in our numbers. The cost at Rent-A-Ride is up here. It's $55 a day. Must be less than. So that has to be less than. The daily cost of We've Got Wheels, which is 38, plus 20 cents times the number of miles. Well, we don't know the number of miles, but we're going to let M represent that. So now I'm going to rewrite my inequality. 55 has to be less than 38 plus 0.2M. Okay, so we've got our inequality. It's saying that the cost at Rent-A-Ride has to be less than whatever I'm going to spend at We Got Wheels, which is their $38 plus their 0.2 times the number of miles. So let's rewrite our inequality. 55 is less than 38 plus 0.2M. Move our 38 over. We've got 17 is less than 0.2 m. Divide both sides by 0.2, and we've got 85 is less than m. So that means that the number of miles, okay, has to be greater than 85 in order for rent-a-ride to cost less, all right? So rent-a-ride will cost less when the number of miles is more than 85. So if you're going to drive less than 85 miles, then it wouldn't be worth it to go with the rent-a-ride company, okay? It would be worth it to go with the other company, all right? And then this last side is just a lesson quiz. If you want to go ahead and pause it and try them and then see if you got the answers right, I'm going to go ahead and just do these. So I'm going to move the 13 over. 2x is greater than or equal to 8. Divide both sides by -2. Since I'm dividing, I've got to flip the sign. So x is less than or equal to 4. For number 2, I'm going to add 11 to both sides. Or, sorry, not add 11. I'm going to simplify this side first. So -11 plus 2 becomes -9 is less than 3p. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to divide both sides by 3 to get 3 by itself. So then -3 is less than p. Okay, for this one, I want to simplify this first. So 2 cubed is 8 is less than, I'm going to distribute this -2, so that becomes -6 plus 2t. I'm going to move my 6 over, so then I get 14 is less than 2t, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. I'm going to move this over here. 14 divided by 2 is 7, so 7 is less than t. And then again on this last one, we're going to use the least common multiple. So the least common multiple of all those denominators is 6. So I'm going to multiply everything by 6 over 1. Even this little part in here. So 3 goes into here 2 times. 2 times 1 becomes 2n. 2 goes into 6 3 times. So we've got plus 3. And then is less than, 3 goes into 6 2 times. And I've got this 2 times this 2, which is 4. Now it looks a lot easier to work with. I'm going to move my 3 over. 2n is less than 1. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. I'm going to write my answer over here. N is less than 1/2. All right, so again, with the multi-step inequalities, you just want to make sure you simplify both sides first, and then use your order of operations, and then use your inverse operations to undo things. And just remember, if you're dividing or multiplying by a negative, you need to flip the sign, and that is it.